my God.
It is still the creepiest experience he's ever had.
That is one experience that she'll never forget.
I've put together some truly terrifying tales for tonight. We've got creepy encounters and things that should not be there. These stories won't be easy to forget.
Discernment is a gift, because I'm going to tell you guys a story about the time I almost went on a date with someone that was literally stalking me, but they pretended like they didn't know who I was. So this was actually a while ago, about 3 years ago, I think I want to say. And one thing about, like, me is I didn't go on many dates because, like, I didn't care to give anyone a chance, really. And that's not in a cocky way or any of that. I was very comfortable with myself, and I enjoyed at the time, like, being single. And I didn't like wasting my time, if that makes sense. I also hate, like, the small talk. It's just, ugh. But anyways, there was this guy who I think he had, like, messaged me on Instagram or something. What's going on? Instagram or something like that. And he had been trying to hang on me for a very long time. And by very long time, by the way, I mean, like, I don't know, 2 months. I'm dramatic. But he was just consistent. And my discernment was telling me, like, something is weird about this guy. But my friends were like, oh my God, he's so cute. Like, he's so successful. What's wrong with you? Why don't you go on this date? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just getting a really, really bizarre feeling about this person. And, like, I'm going to trust my gut. And one time, because I ended up giving him my number, like a month into him messaging me, he called me and I was out with my friends. And so I was a little tipsy. I answered it. And I remember just like, oh, I just, please, like, oh, you're out, like, where are you, like, let me come slide through and just say hi to you. And I was like, no, I'm having, like, a girls' night, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, at bar, like, the bar I was at. He's like, oh, yeah, you're at blank. And I was like, how'd you know that? He's like, oh, I saw you post. I was like, I haven't posted a single thing on my story. My Snapchat notifications, like my, what is it, Snap Map? I don't even have Snapchat anymore. That was never on. My location services were never on. He didn't know anyone that, like, had my location. I was like, how did you find that out? I didn't post. And he tried, like, because mine is on the phone. It's like, oh, it was your friend. I was like, what friend? Because my friends and I hadn't posted anything. And I was like, whatever, you know what, you're fucking weird, bye. I hung up and I blocked him. I'm like, nope, not interested. That was weird. I told my friends, like, we gotta go. Like, I didn't want to be, not to be dramatic, but I was like, I don't feel safe. Because I've had an actual stalker before that went to jail. So when I feel like I'm being watched, I tend to stim out. Like, for obvious reasons. I had a stalker that tried to break into my home several times, that followed me from work, that followed me everywhere, and ruined my perception of safety for a long time. So I don't play with this shit. And no, I didn't think it was the same person, but you get what I'm saying. So anyways, I blocked his number, and I wake up the next day, I realized I didn't block him on Instagram. He sent me, like, 8 messages via IG. And he was like, hey, I don't know what happened last night, like, blah, 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 but can you please just, like, please answer, like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, dude, I remember I messaged him back, I was like, I've never even met you. You are fucking weird. Why are you so tripping about this? And he tried to be like, the only reason I said that place is because, like, you mentioned it before, which I don't think I did, but he was gaslighting me like crazy. He's like, can you just call me? Can I just talk to you on the phone? I was like, no, I blocked your number. So I ended up Instagram calling him. I'm like, you know, I'll hear you out. Instagram call. He's being really odd on the phone call, and then he lets something else slip. There is a modeling agency I used to work for, famous brand. Under that brand, I was not Riley at all. I had a completely different name. I never posted this brand on my socials. You would have to dig to find this. He was like trying to joke around with me, and he says, calm down, model name that no one should know about. And I was like, dude, this guy told me, like, because I remember talking, he's like, oh, I just found you on Instagram. Like, no, what do you do for work? Like, where do you stay? Like, acts like he had no idea who he was. He was deeply stalking me to the point of when I worked at this agency at the time, or not even, it wasn't an agency, it was a brand. I had not worked with them in like 3 months. So, and this guy just met me like a couple months before that. Like, I quit working for them under a different fucking name before he followed me anything. I was like, what do you know about me? Why did you lie and ask what I do for work? Why did you lie and act like you don't know, like, everything? I was like, you are the creepiest person I've ever met in my life. And I am so glad I trusted my judgment and I never met you. Girls, if you have that gift of discernment, I don't care how attractive a person is, how wealthy they are, how, like, listen to your gut. Because all I could stop thinking about after that is like, oh my God, what if I actually hung out with him? Dude was obsessed with me. Act like he had no idea what I did for work, no idea who I was. And I just have this horrible gut feeling that if I would have hung out with him, something bad would have happened to me. I trust my gut. I have never, ever been wrong. And I'm so glad that I caught that in the midst of everything lie. And I knew that this dude was tripping. Trust your gut and stay safe out there.
She's so lucky she didn't go out with him. I mean, it's weird how he knew where she was without posting anything on social media. He knew her spot and called her out on it while she was with her friends. Then he dropped that name from her old modeling job. Nobody knew about that part of her life. He spent months pretending he didn't know anything about her, while he was actually digging into every tiny detail of her life. People who put that much effort on a huge lie are low-key dangerous. I'm just sitting here wondering how many other girls he might have done that to.
When I was 6 years old, my father travelled constantly for work. He was a pilot, and every time he came home, he brought gifts or treasures from places I could barely pronounce. Usually, they were harmless things. Dolls with stiff plastic smiles, collectible lunchboxes with Minnie Mouse printed on them. Bright, safe, familiar.
Yeah.
But one night, he brought something different. He just returned from Japan. He placed the box on the kitchen table with a strange expression, half amused, half uncertain, and told us he'd found something unique. Inside was a monkey. A cymbal-clapping monkey. The kind you've probably seen before. Brown fur, red vest, wide, painted grin. Metal cymbals frozen mid-clap. It was battery-powered. You had to press a button to make it move. At least that's how it was supposed to work. My sister, who was 9 at the time, didn't like it from the moment she saw it. She said its eyes looked too real, too aware. I, on the other hand, was fascinated. We lived in Norway, so our toys were boring dolls and Sylvanian family figurines. Nothing like this, nothing so animated. We brought it upstairs to our shared bedroom in the loft. The loft is important for later. It sat at the very top of the house, accessible only by a narrow staircase that creaked under the slightest weight. We played with the monkey for a while, pressed the button, and it clapped in a quick, cheerful rhythm. Its head jerked side to side mechanically, cymbals crashing together in sharp metallic bursts. Clap, 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 and silence. That night, after dinner, my mum came upstairs and made a point of turning it off herself. I remember the distinct click of the switch. She placed it carefully in the toy box, shut the lid, and told us to get some sleep. The house grew quiet. I don't know what time it was when my sister shook me awake. The room was dark, except for the faint blue glow from the window. She was leaning over me, her face pale, not annoyed, not teasing, but terrified. She put her mouth close to my ear and whispered, barely audible, "Marie, I can hear the monkey." I groaned at first. My siblings loved scaring me. But when I looked at her properly, I felt something inside me drop. Her eyes weren't playful, they were wet. We both held our breath. And then I heard it. Clap. A long pause. Clap. It was faint, metallic, deliberate. Not the fast, cheerful rhythm from earlier either. This was slower, measured. Clap. Pause. Clap. It wasn't coming from inside our room. It was coming from outside the door.
Oh no.
Our bedroom door stood at the top of the staircase, and beyond it was nothing but the narrow steps leading down into darkness, and somewhere on those stairs, clap, was the monkey. We didn't want to move. The idea of opening that door felt impossible, but going down to our mum meant facing whatever was making that sound. The clapping continued, slow, patient, as if it knew we were awake. My sister grabbed my hand and pulled me towards the door. My legs felt numb. She turned the handle slowly, so slowly the metal barely made a sound, and opened it just enough to see through the crack. The staircase was dim and the shadows were stretching along the walls. And there it was. The monkey. Not in the toy box, not upstairs. It was sitting on the top step, directly facing our door. Clap. Its cymbals met softly this time. Clap. Its head moved in short, jerky motions, but the rhythm was wrong. Too spaced out, too intentional, like it wasn't performing. Like it was waiting. For us. I stared at its face, at that painted smile, and I could swear its glass eyes shifted upward, towards the crack in the door, towards us, watching. Clap. My sister slammed the door shut. She started crying immediately, and I did too. My whole body was shaking so badly, I thought I might faint. The clapping stopped. For a moment. The silence was worse. Clap, clap, closer. Faster. Clap, clap, clap. It was moving. We didn't speak. We didn't even plan. My sister suddenly stood up, grabbed my wrist, and flung the door open. The monkey was only a few steps down now. Clap, 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 clap. The rhythm was speeding up. The cymbals were crashing violently in the narrow stairwell. The sound echoed off the walls, filling the loft. My sister screamed and kicked it as hard as she could. The monkey tumbled down the staircase, hitting step after step, its cymbals clanging wildly as it fell. And we ran. Down the stairs, past it, across the living room, straight to our mum. She didn't believe us at first, but we were hysterical, shaking, barely able to form sentences. We told her it had moved, that it was waiting for us, that it sped up when we ran. We swore on everything. She checked the stairs. The monkey was lying at the bottom, silent, off. We slept in her bed that night. The next morning, the three of us walked upstairs together, slowly, carefully. When we opened the toy box, it was inside, neatly placed, exactly where my mum had left it, with the switch off, facing upward, smiling. My mum didn't argue after that. She threw it in the bin the same day and we never saw it again. But weeks later, when the house was quiet and the loft felt too still, my sister and I would lie awake, staring at the door, and sometimes very faintly from the other side. Thank you for taking time to read our story. It happened 12 years ago, and we're both adults now. However, we still talk about the incident, and we've never got a good explanation for it.
I've seen those monkey toys. They're already nasty to look at. One of them sitting at the top of the stairs while everybody's asleep is just too much. I don't know why it decided to change its rhythm. The slow, steady clapping sounds way more deliberate than just a normal toy glitching out. I mean, it's like it wanted them to hear every single strike of those metal cymbals. Then they kick it down the stairs and it still finds its way back into the box. I'm definitely looking into my closet tonight to make sure none of my old toys are planning some sort of midnight walk.
This story is insane, so you guys buckle up. Also, a trigger warning for sensitive content. Skip this video if this is a trigger for you. Laura said that there is one particular thing she went through when she was 9 years old that has always stuck with her. Now, when she was 9, it was 2007. That, unfortunately, is the year that her mom passed away. Her mom passed away from self-unaliving. Laura said that her mom had always struggled with her mental health and unfortunately did not win her battle. Around funeral time, she and her family printed off a bunch of collages of pictures to hang up at the funeral. There was one particular picture that Laura found amongst her mother's belongings that stuck out to her. She said that in this picture, her mom was around 10 or 11 years old, and the resemblance that Laura had to her mom in this picture was uncanny. They already looked alike, but it was just kind of insane how much they looked alike in this particular photo. Now, after the funeral, Laura said that she and her dad tried their best to resume life as normal as it could be after losing your mom. They had a vacation home in Maryland, and during the summer, they would stay there for longer periods of time. During the winter, they would just stay on weekends. I misspoke in the last clip and said that it was a home they stayed in. It wasn't. In fact, it was like a vacation trailer that they would park on this 800-acre park in Maryland. I'll include some like map reference pictures here that Laura sent to me. But she and her dad, this one particular morning in December, are staying there, and she wakes up around 6 a.m. because she has to go to the bathroom. Now, during the winter months, they turn the water off because they keep a bathhouse for anybody who's like staying in the park. So when she wakes up having to use the bathroom, she has to walk to the bathhouse. So she lets her dad know. He says it's okay. She gets her flashlight and she begins her walk over to the bathhouse. Now, as she's walking over, she notices it's still pretty dark outside, so her visibility is not the best. But she said that there's a huge field beside the bathhouse, and that suddenly a light kind of catches the corner of her eye, like from a flashlight, and it's coming from this field area. So she looks over, and to her surprise, she sees two people walking through this field. And it seems like they're conversing amongst themselves. She should, in theory, be close enough to like at least make out some mumbling, something. She can't hear any voices, but they're facing away from her. And so she said it struck her as odd because people usually are not up at that hour, much less walking through a big empty field. But she shines her flashlight over to kind of like illuminate so she could see a little better. They still don't acknowledge her. And so at this point she says hello. And as soon as she says hello, both figures whip around to face her. And she said that the one person she didn't recognize at all, but that the other person standing there was so clearly her mom. It was her mom from that picture at the funeral. Like the exact same hairdo, the exact same clothes, same age. She was around 10 or 11. It was uncanny. She said the only difference this time was that there was a wound on her head. Laura is so terrified and confused by what she's seeing. Bathroom is out of the question at this point. She turns around and runs as fast as she can back to the trailer, wakes her dad up, and tells him what she just saw. He chalks it up to her just being a kid with a wild imagination. Nothing more. And this confused and hurt her, honestly. It affected her deeply because Laura said she knows what she saw. She was not dreaming. She was not just a kid with a wild imagination. She saw her mom and somebody else standing in that field. Now, for months after this, she cannot get this vivid image out of her head, and anybody she tries to share the experience with, same thing her dad does. They chalk it up to her being a kid with a wild imagination. Everyone except one person. So months after this incident, her mom's best friend comes to her one day and says, "Laura, I had a dream about your mom last night, and your mom had a message for you." She went on to explain that when her mom came to her in this dream, she said, "Tell Laura when she's no longer scared, I will appear to her again." And then she further explained that she didn't want to scare and didn't mean to scare any of her children. Laura said that single thing was the one thing like that validated this life-altering experience for her. Now, it's been years. Laura is an adult now, and she still has not seen an apparition of her mother like that again. She still doesn't quite know what to make of it. She does believe it was her mother, though, and she said that in the house that she's in now, she does have some activities, some experiences. She doesn't quite know if it is her mom or another family member, but that is one experience that she'll never forget. And man, y'all, gave me full body chills. It's sad, but it is so compelling, man. Like, that is wild. We've shared stories from beyond the grave here on this channel before. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Send me your spooky stories. Super quick before I jump off, I wanted to share something really important with you guys. So, a member of our family here on TikTok, her name is Stephanie. She has been in a very serious car accident. She has been injured very seriously in the accident. She is such a sweet soul. She is a mother. She, when she reached out to me, shared she had already been struggling financially. And then when she got in the wreck, it's amplified that times 1,000, as I'm sure you can imagine. We all know what kind of insurance and healthcare crisis we have here in the States anyway. She is currently in the hospital or like a rehabilitation facility trying to recover. She has to go undergo surgeries, and she's having a really hard time getting insurance to cover the medical equipment she's going to need when she is able to return home to her child. She has living expenses and medical bills and just so much on her plate right now. I can personally relate to that, and I know how overwhelming it is. I asked if she had a GoFundMe. She did, and she shared that with me. I have posted the link to that at the on my Facebook page. I'll pin it to the top of my profile. I'll also here in this video include a screen cap of the QR code. You can screenshot that and pull up her GoFundMe via QR code. You can go to my Facebook and pull it up. I'll also tag Stephanie in this video, and you can reach out to her directly via DM if you want to get the GoFundMe link that way. No amount is too small, guys, especially when you are going through a crisis like this. If there is anything you can do for Stephanie and her family.
Hearing about that head wound is really rough. It's really clear. I mean, her mom looking like her childhood self is one thing, but then she turns around and has some sort of hole in her head. That's a lot for a kid to deal with. And that message from the friend's dream is even more intense. She's waiting for her to not be scared anymore. I'd be scared for my life after that. It's like she's just hanging around in the fields at night. I don't think I could ever go back to that park. That poor girl just wanted to use the bathroom and saw her mother's ghosts looking like a child.
You guys want to hear a story about a guy who saw the Mothman in Appalachia, had a horrible experience, and then had some type of special agent show up to his house afterwards? So back in the 1970s, a guy named Reese lived in this tiny West Virginia community called Addison. It was a kind of place where everybody knows everybody, and the river was basically the town's backyard. So Reese wasn't a very social guy, so after work he would just take his tiny little motorboat out on the Ohio River and he would fish. Now he would do this long after the sun disappeared behind the hills. One night, near an area that locals called Brian's Run, basically a lonely pocket of woods pressed right up against these old railroad tracks, he was just packing up when he hears this sound echoing across the water. It didn't sound like an animal or a person, it was like something in between, he said. He said it was like this long broken cry that rose and fell like it was in pain. Thinking that somebody may be hurt, he guided his boat towards the shoreline, but the closer that he got to the shoreline, the weirder the sound got. It was like something was trying to communicate but failing. So he ties his boat, he grabs his flashlight, and he steps into the dark trees. Now up ahead, he sees what looks like this tangled mound of brush or branches. So at first he's thinking this is just a collapsed tree limb, right? But then it shuddered very slightly, almost like something was breathing underneath it. So he raises his flashlight to get a better look, and before the beam even reached it, the entire pile just lurches upward in one movement, like something was literally unfolding itself from the ground. As he's watching this happen, a rush of air just slams into him. He said that it literally felt like his bones were rattling. His flashlight then flies out of his hand because of this gush of wind, and then he sees something. He only sees the outline of it, but it's impossibly tall, human-shaped, but wrong. He said it had broad shoulders, enormous wings tucked behind its back, two burning red eyes reflecting the faintest bits of moonlight. At this point, he's like, I do not need to see any more. F this. He turns around, he starts running through the branches, and he is running so fast that these branches are whipping at his face. And then behind him, he hears another cry, louder though, sharper, and he swore he could hear wings beating against the air above the treetops, following him. He finally bursts into the road. He gets onto the roadside. He's shaking, out of breath. Minutes later, a trucker drives by, and he flags him down, and he's like, can you please give me a ride back to town? I have to get out of here. So the trucker gives him a ride home. He gets home. He goes to lay down in bed that night. He cannot sleep that night. But oh, it does not end there. The next morning, Reese calls a friend, and it's the only person that he trusts just enough to believe him. Now, after talking to his friend, him and his friend drive back to the site to go get his boat, because remember, he had left his boat there. When they reach the shoreline, his friend just stops dead in his tracks, because where the boat should have been, nothing but blackened wooden ribs, still warm like they had burned recently. There's no sign of a campfire, no discarded matches. There was no sign that anyone had been there at all. Just a perfectly burned out boat. Now, Reese at this point is very upset, and so he decides he's going to go to the sheriff. Now, as he's talking to the sheriff is just kind of listening to him quietly. And then when he's finished talking, the sheriff says, "Don't worry, we'll look into it." But Reese said that the calmness in his voice was just wrong, like almost like he had already known more than he should. So Reese is like, okay, whatever. So he goes home and he sees his wife, and his wife looks a little rattled. And he's like, "What's going on?" And she says, "A man came by looking for you." She described him in a black suit, black hat, dark sunglasses in the middle of rural West Virginia. No name, no reason for being there. He only wanted to know where Reese was. Now, Reese and his wife were like, we're not waiting for answers. They pack up their bags and they leave town that very night. No goodbyes, no explanation. Years later, Reese finally told the full story to one of his friends, and he said that he had no doubt in his mind that this creature was the Mothman. And he believes that the man who came afterward wasn't human either. The boat, no animal burns a boat into clean ashes. Something or someone wanted to erase what Reese saw. So what did you guys think about this story? Number one, I do have to credit the original poster. It came from Addison, West Virginia, Mothman encounter, and it was shared publicly online. I'm not sure exactly where. It was like Spooky Appalachia or something. I do not like retelling stories without giving the person credit, so I will try to tag them in some way, or I will put it in the caption. This is a real encounter though. The original poster posted it anonymously and she just retold it, so this is me retelling it from her. But yeah, what do you guys think about that story? That was so creepy. First of all, the creepiest part to me is the Mothman, obviously, or whatever that thing was, that would have terrified me, but the person showing up at his door afterwards looking for him, that would just creep me out. And the fact that he thinks it wasn't human, I wonder why he thinks that that person wasn't human. I wish I could talk to this person. Do you guys think this was the Mothman? Do you think it was something else? Do you think maybe it was some type of alien? Like, who was that person that showed up at the doorstep? Again, I want to know. I don't know. This is so creepy. And the fact that his boat burned down, why do you think that? What does the boat have to do with anything? They said so that everything that he saw could be erased, but the boat doesn't have eyes. The boat didn't see anything. It was him. And people obviously fish on that lake or that river or whatever it was, so I don't understand why the boat got burned down. So if someone could please help me understand that, but drop it in the comments.
The thought of a boat just being turned into a pile of ash, that is enough to make anyone want to move away. Feels like something specifically targeted his property to scare him off or get rid of any proof that he was out there. Then you have that strange guy in a suit showing up and asking questions. He was being watched at the river, that is for sure. I'd be watching my back at every second if I knew some government type was following my movements after I saw something I wasn't supposed to see.
It looked exactly like my dad, but whatever was standing in my house that night wasn't. Get ready with me while I tell you guys this ghost story. This story was sent into my email, and if you have any ghost stories, paranormal encounters, or scary stories that you want to share, you can send them to the email in my bio. I used to think I knew exactly how my dad sounded, how he stood, the way he looked at me, and I know how that sounds. I've tried to explain it 100 different ways, but nothing makes sense. This all happened about a year and a half ago. My mom was out of town and my dad had gone out with friends. He told me he was going to stay the night at my cousin's house because it was late and he didn't want to bother me to come pick him up. So it was just me home alone. That night the house was completely quiet. Quieter than usual and quieter than I was comfortable with. The sort of quiet that you notice because it's unusual. I had gone to bed and at some point I woke up. I remember checking my phone and it was around 2 a.m. I was thirsty, so I got out of bed and went downstairs to the kitchen. Finally got there and I grabbed a glass of water and stood there for a second, half asleep. And then I turned around. Why is it always sneaking up on you? Why is it always sneaking up? Oh, that's when I saw him. My dad standing in the kitchen, just standing there. There are certain ways that things are described that they give me the creeps, okay? Picturing somebody that you know is not supposed to be home, just, first of all, sneaking up on you, right? Second of all, just standing there, Not saying anything, not moving, not trying to conversate, just... At first, my brain didn't even question it. Well, why would it? It's your dad. I just assumed that he must have come home early. Maybe he got an Uber or something. Maybe he didn't feel like staying over. So I said hi. And he didn't respond. Oh my, no. No. He just stared at me. He wasn't confused and he didn't seem tired. Just a blank stare. For a few seconds, I really didn't think much of it. I figured he might be drunk or just out of it. And then he finally spoke. I have to mentally prepare. 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 He looked right at me and asked, "Do you have Skittles?" Skittles. This just made me flash back to the Men in Black movie where the alien is like asking for sugar. What if this entire time what we think of as mimics are actually just aliens? Okay? What? I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight now that I've just thought of that. I actually laughed. His question was absurd. We don't eat Skittles. We don't even buy candy like that. It was just such a random and out of place thing for him to say. So I said, no. Then he tilted his head slightly. I hate a head tilt. A head tilt is menacing. A head tilt is gross. Then he tilted his head slightly and said, "Do you want Skittles?" "I have Skittles." "What's your favorite color of Skittles?" Why is he trying to lure you in? The way he said it wasn't playful at all. It wasn't how my dad jokes around. It felt very forced, very off. Like he was trying to sound normal, but missing the mark. But still, I brushed it off. I told myself that he had to have just been messing with me, or that maybe he had had a few drinks and was just being weird. So I laughed it off, said goodnight, and went back upstairs. I remember thinking to myself that it was a very strange interaction between us, but it didn't feel scary. Not yet. If this thing follows you upstairs, we're gonna have a freaking problem. We are going to have a problem. I laid back down, I closed my eyes, and eventually I fell asleep again. But about an hour later, I was woken up. I rolled over and opened my eyes to see he was standing in my doorway. Even if it is your dad, even if it is him and it's not a mimic or an alien, why is he being so creepy? Don't creepily stand in my doorway. This type of behavior would, to be completely honest, just piss me off. He was just standing there, unmoving, watching me. I remember the hallway light behind him so clearly because it made it so that I couldn't see his face. All I could see was the outline of him, tall, still, and silent, and my heart started beating faster. This time, I didn't let myself ignore that something definitely felt wrong. I sat up in bed and asked, "Are you okay? Do you feel sick?" And the second I spoke, he ran. What? Genuinely ran. He didn't walk away like a normal person. He turned and sprinted. So I sat there frozen, staring at the empty doorway, trying to finish waking up, trying to process what the hell had just happened. At this point, I was so freaked out that I didn't even want to get out of bed again. But something struck me. My cat. Your cat? Your cat is in the middle of all this? After I had seen my dad in the kitchen the first time, my cat was hissing. The sort of hiss like something was seriously wrong. So I had brought his food bowl into my room to try and calm him down. Really something I only do when he's really freaked out. When I woke up the next morning, the bowl was still there, which cemented to me that everything that had happened the night before hadn't been a dream. I hadn't imagined getting up. I hadn't sleepwalked. I was awake. All of what had happened, happened. The next morning, I heard the front door open, and my dad walked in. Oh my God! Normal and calm, completely unaware of anything that had happened the night before. I immediately asked him, "Where did you go last night?" And he looked at me confused and said, "I stayed at your cousin's." And that's when I knew. I asked him if he had come home at all, even for a minute, even briefly. He said no. So I told him everything. The kitchen, the question about the Skittles, him standing in my doorway, and he just stared at me and said, "That wasn't me." I took it so far as to call my cousin and double check, and he confirmed it. My dad had been there the entire night. Oh my God. In that moment, I remembered we have cameras outside of the house. So I checked them over and over again. Every angle, every timestamp, and not once, not for a single second, did my dad come home that night.
It's the scale of things for me. Why that specific candy? Something trying to sound like her dad but getting the vibe entirely wrong is just a bad sign. Then he just tilts his head like he's testing her. I'd be gone from that house so fast. But the end, when he's just standing in the doorway and takes off a full sprint, that's what does it. Usually these things just fade away or disappear once you look at them twice. This thing didn't. It actively ran from her. Knowing the cameras didn't see anything at all makes it all more real. It's creepy.
I got a really creepy doll story for you. This story was submitted to me all the way from the UK. She'd like to remain anonymous for the story, so we're going to call her Kay. Kay absolutely loves porcelain dolls and clowns, and she says that she is an avid collector and has over 40 of them. Off to a fantastic start. So one very interesting thing about Kay is she says that she can see and hear spirits. Kay also says that a few of her dolls have become vessels, and she would describe them as kind. Kay says that she knows the energy of every single one of them. So when she brought a new one home and it immediately felt wrong, yeah, here we go. She says that the doll was a beautiful old drummer and it had one of those wind-up keys on the back. She said that the wind-up key was very stiff and hard to crank. Nonetheless, she was absolutely drawn to him the moment she laid her eyes on him. But guys, the second she got him home and into her house, she immediately had a wave of anxiety wash over her. Kay says that this feeling was unlike anything else she has ever experienced with any of her other dolls. She even said that she became reluctant to even go into the room where she had placed him. Then she kind of shook it off and talked herself out of it and just thought, you know what? It's just been a really long time since I've had a new addition and the feeling's gonna pass. It didn't pass. Okay, so on one particular night, she was having a phone call with her partner and she was wearing those noise canceling headphones. So all she is able to hear and focus on is his voice. And then all of a sudden, he goes quiet for like a solid 10 seconds before asking, what is that noise in the background? So she pulls her headphones off and she turns around and sees that this doll is playing his drum. She goes over and turns him over and she notices that wind-up key was spinning as if somebody cranked it. Now remember, this crank is extremely hard to turn. Someone or something had to have wound it. So she ignores it, but after a few days, this doll kept on drumming on and off on its own. Then the sound of the footsteps came. She would hear footsteps all throughout the house when nobody was there walking around. And even her cats noticed. They, who once absolutely loved going in her room, eventually would stop right at the doorway, look inside with their ears back, and hiss and refuse to go through the threshold. And then on the same night, the knocking began on her bedroom windows and her walls. And a constant sick feeling washed over her every time she was in that room with the doll. So one night at 4:54 in the morning, she wakes up after having a nightmare that involved the doll. She also says she will spare us the details of this, but she is somebody who has in the past had night terrors. And she says, I would take a night terror any day over the kinds of dreams that she started having involving this doll. Time for the doll to go bye-bye. Okay, so one of the times she was playing with her cats on the kitchen floor when a horrible laughter came out of the living room and sounding like it was coming from the landing. So this is terrifying. She calls her partner and she stays on the phone with him the entire time while she goes through the house and checks every room and nothing is there. Okay, so this freaks her out so much that she now takes her cats, puts them in a carrier, and takes them outside to spend some time in the garden, to just have that open air feeling, just to kind of get out of that heaviness of the home. She's sitting there and she's trying to just, relax and calm herself down until, y'all, she heard a knocking coming from the kitchen window, like from inside the house. And she looks up, standing inside of the kitchen, visible through the glass from from where she was sitting in her garden stood a huge black dark figure with the deepest red eyes she'd ever seen that almost glowed bright and yet remained dark at the same time. And horrifyingly worse, she says that this thing was holding her severed head in its hands. Like, oh my gosh. She said it wasn't a reflection and it wasn't a trick of the light on the glass. This was very clearly this massive figure holding her head in its grasp. And she said her eyes were completely blackened. So she refuses to go back inside the house until her family comes home, which, you know, obviously same. She also says that that doll was gone same day. Smart. Okay, so that happened like 9 months ago, right? And she says that ever since she has had so many dreams, always with this doll still in there haunting her. She says in these dreams, every single time, this doll is just a little bit closer to her than the one before. Oh my God. All right, guys, drop your thoughts in the comments. I know Kay will be in there looking to see what you guys think. And what stories do you have involving creepy freaking dolls? Guys, my mom has a room that my children call the doll room. It is full of porcelain dolls that she had inherited from her mother and also ones that she just collected over the years. And my freaking kids will stay in that spare room, the doll room, anytime they sleep over. And I honestly don't know how.
I'm still hung up on that drummer doll. A key that's too stiff to turn just starts spinning like someone is cranking it. No thanks. I'd be hitting the road in a heartbeat, but that ending is what's actually stuck in my brain. Looking through the kitchen window and seeing a giant shadow thing with glowing red eyes is bad. I mean, fair enough. Then you realize it's holding your own head. I don't know how she didn't just pass out right there in the garden. It's like the doll was some kind of doorway for whatever that black thing was. I'm double locking my windows tonight.
Guys were at a party at my house that no one else saw but me. And he said this took place 25 years ago when he was living in Puyallup, Washington. Had to look up how to pronounce that town. I thought it was Puyallup, which is fun. It's fun either way. But Eric says he was at a desperate time in his life when he moved into this house. He was in college and the house was just outside of town. One side was a cliff and the other side was the only neighbor that shared an unkempt dirt driveway. Says a lot of strange things happened leading up to the night that he encountered these two men in this house. But to give you some context, this house was a 1920s Sears house, which meant that it had been picked out of a Sears catalog and that everything needed to build the house was delivered to the property and then built by the homeowners. And it was old, it was dirty, it had not been updated. That it was seriously neglected, but it was dry, it was cheap, and it was near the school that he was attending. It was a 4-bedroom, 1-bathroom with 2 stories and an enclosed porch, and a friend of his had asked him if he wanted to rent a room. And the other guys that lived in the house he was cool with, so it suited his needs at the time. And his room was clearly the master bedroom. It was bigger and it had higher ceilings than the other bedroom. A walk-in closet and a small window that faced a light pole, which was on the edge of this cliff. And when I say cliff, I mean the house was perched on a hill about 20 feet off the main road that passed this house. It wasn't like they were on the side of a mountain or anything, but a very steep drop-off. The room was also situated on the main floor of the house while the other bedrooms were upstairs. And this detail is important because he wanted to point out that his bedroom was just off the kitchen and the main living room. The time the story takes place, Eric was working at a chain hair salon, and he said his days weren't grueling by any means, and he was very rarely tired during the day. But on this one particular day, he wakes up and he's extremely tired, which was unlike him, and his girlfriend calls the house. And he had just started dating this girl. She was a single mother to a 2-year-old. He calls his house phone, he answers, and she's like, "Surprise, we're in your driveway, come outside." So he goes outside, and he remembers he wanted to hang out with her, but he was also just so tired. So he invites them in, and he's saying, I think I need to take a nap. She and the little girl are in the living room, and as they're having this conversation, the girl interrupts their conversation, and she's screaming, and she's chasing somebody invisible around the pool table. And they just think, oh, she's just a little girl being a little girl, and they watch her for a minute interacting with nothing or someone that they couldn't see. And it was very clear that she was playing with someone or something. Both just wrote it off as a little kid being a little kid. But then a wave of exhaustion hit him, and he was like, I'm so sorry to do this, but I really think I need to lay back down. And she says, it's okay. They said their goodbyes, and his girlfriend and her daughter leave. He goes, okay, I'll call you later. And he goes back in his room and lays down. And he said he fell asleep instantly. And when he woke up, it was completely dark in his room, which was strange because normally the street light outside would illuminate the room if it was nighttime. The sun was clearly down and the streetlight was off, and he remembers thinking this is so strange. And he tried to sit up, but he couldn't move, and he said it felt like a thin sheet was covering his entire body. And the more he tried to sit up, the tighter the sheet restricted his movement. He tries to sit up again, and it gets even tighter, and now he feels like he can't breathe, and he starts to lose consciousness, and he just remembers this feeling of panic taking over him, and he just remembers thinking, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you off of me. Because I don't know what possessed me to say it. I just thought I was having this episode of sleep paralysis, but it felt like there was another presence in the room. It was strange. But as he says it, there's this loud popping sound in his ears. And then all of a sudden he realizes that every light in his room is on, and the street light from outside is illuminating the bedroom. As he's processing this brightness and trying to figure out how he managed to sleep through the entire day, he realizes that he's overwhelmed with the sound of voices coming from the living room outside of his room. It sounds like 20 or 30 different people talking, and he can hear someone breaking the cue on the pool table. Here's the stereo blasting full volume, and he's like, what is going on? So he walks to the door and he opens it up, and there is a full-on party happening in his house. The house was completely full, and as he's standing in the doorway trying to process this, his roommate walks up to him and is like, hey, are you okay? And Eric just said he felt like his energy was heavy, something was off, and he's like, I just need some fresh air. So he walked to the front door. Out on the porch, there are easily 60 people standing in his front yard, and he's standing there just taking it all in. Still not feeling quite like himself when out of the corner of his eye, he sees two people that stand out. And they're two men, and they're walking up the driveway, and they're staring dead at him. Both the men were wearing wide-brimmed cowboy hats, black trench coats with black shirts and pants underneath. They weren't talking to each other or anyone else as they navigated the crowd, heading straight for Eric, still locked eyes with him. They stepped among the crowd silently and carefully as to not touch anyone as they did. And as they're nearing the porch, Eric realized that nobody else had encountered these men. Nobody was moving out of their way. Nobody even seemed to give them a second look. Just as they reached the porch, still staring at Eric, they veered off and headed straight into the patch of blackberry bushes on the cliff side of the house. Said something about their presence shook him to his core. He doesn't know what it was exactly, maybe the way they were dressed or maybe the way that they locked eyes with him. But after they disappeared through the blackberry patch, he couldn't shake the feeling of, I need to know what happened to them. So he ran through the crowd and ran through the bushes, but they were nowhere. He said it was a cliff. There was nowhere for them to disappear to. And so he turned around and he started asking everyone in the crowd, hey, who were those two guys in the cowboy hats? But no one knew who he was talking about. Eric ran frantically person to person, asking all of them, hey, do you know who those two guys were that just walked through here? They were dressed in all black, wearing cowboy hats. And every single person looked at him like he was crazy, and a few people even asked him if he had taken any substances. It shook him so badly that he ran into his room, grabbed some stuff, and went to his girlfriend's for the night, and he said he moved out shortly thereafter. And this is strange because a few weeks after this incident, the house exploded spontaneously, never found a reason for it. Could just be an old house, but another thing that he pointed out was one time when they were exploring the property, they found 3 empty graves behind the house. So who were the men? Eric says he has no idea, he has no explanation, and even though it's been 25 years, it is still the creepiest experience he's ever had.
A little girl laughing and playing with an invisible person by the pool table is plenty to make me want to quit right then. It gets way heavier when he describes that feeling of a sheet getting tighter and tighter around him until he can't breathe. I've heard of sleep paralysis before, but that sounds like something else entirely. Those 2 men in the black cowboy hats staring him down while walking through a huge crowd without touching anyone is just bizarre. They walked straight off a cliff and vanished into thin air. Then the house just blew up for no reason the week after.
And even though she had passed, I saw her again. I need to tell you guys this ghost story. Back in 2016, my mom was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. At first, it felt like something that we could all fight, something that we could get through. But about a year later, unfortunately, everything changed. Doctors had found 3 lesions in her brain. And from that point on, it was like we were just waiting for time to run out. 2 years after her diagnosis, she passed away. It was the summer of 2018. We had only been living in the Irish countryside for a few months when it happened, and I remember the morning so clearly. It was bright. The kind of sunny day that you can't help but feel wrong amidst something terrible that's happening. My dad told me the news early that morning, and I didn't cry, not at first. I just couldn't process it. It didn't feel real. So I went outside and sat in the back garden, trying to make sense of something, anything, because what was happening to me just didn't. I sat there, staring ahead, feeling completely numb, and that's when I noticed it. My shadow. It was cast long across the grass because of the way the sun was hitting behind me. And at first I wasn't really paying attention to it. But then I looked a little closer.
I don't know how to explain this in a way that sounds even a little bit logical, but the outline of my face wasn't mine. The silhouette, the shape of the nose, the curve of the forehead, it looked exactly like my mom. And the thing is, I don't really look like her. I take after my dad more than anything, but this shadow, it wasn't me. It was her. I remember just staring at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing, tilting my head slightly, shifting my position, but no matter how I moved, it still looked just like her, clear as day, and for a second, it didn't even feel scary. It felt impossible, like my brain was trying to show me something that I shouldn't be able to see. Eventually, I looked away. I told myself that it was grief, that it was shock, that it was my mind just trying to cope. But what happened next made all of my explanations feel a lot less convincing. My dog suddenly started barking. Not excited, not playful, but alert and focused. It had noticed something that nobody else had, and it was staring towards the back door. The door was open, leading into the kitchen, and whatever my dog was reacting to was inside. So I stood up and walked over, slowly, with each step trying to figure out what it could possibly be. At first, when I looked in, I didn't see anything. The kitchen looked completely normal, empty, but then I heard it. A small sound, coming from just behind the door. There was an empty trash can sitting there, and the noise was coming from inside it. My dog wouldn't get any closer. It stayed back, tense and watching, so I stepped forward, carefully, and I looked inside, and at the very bottom of the empty bin was a tiny shrew, small and fragile, running in frantic little circles, trying to climb the smooth sides to get out. And here's why that moment hit me like a ton of bricks. It was because my dad used to call my mom Shrew as a nickname. He'd always joke that she had a cute little pointy nose just like one. It was one of those small random things that you don't think about much until you're forced to, because this particular day just wasn't any other day. It was the morning after she had died, and somehow there was a shrew trapped inside of our bin in our kitchen. When I got to thinking, it just didn't make any sense. The bin was tall, completely empty. There was no trash in it. Realistically, nothing could have climbed on it to get in or out. There was no clear way it could have ended up there. It should have been impossible. I called my dad in. He came into the kitchen and saw it, and without hesitation, gently picked it up. He's always been really good with animals, and he was careful and calm. He carried it outside and released it back into the garden, and that was it. We didn't talk about it. We didn't react. We didn't try to explain. We just stood there in silence, but later, we both acknowledged how strange it was. My dad isn't the type to believe in anything supernatural. He's always been a very grounded man, very logical, but even he couldn't explain it. And I know that grief can do strange things to the mind. It could have very well been the reason why I saw my mother's face in my shadow. But the shrew, that was very much real. My dad saw it too, and to this day, neither of us have any explanation. And it's the only one that I've ever seen in my life. And I live out in the countryside where there are animals everywhere. But before that day, and even after it, I've never seen another shrew. Just that one, on that one morning, right after she had gone.
I'm replaying that shadow silhouette. She doesn't even look like her mom, yet the profile was an exact match. It looks as though something was standing right there with her. Then finding that tiny shrew in a wall, empty bin, is such a gut punch. There was nothing for it to climb and no way inside. Her dad calling her mom Shrew as a nickname is a lot to process. Seems like her mom found the most unique way possible to let them know she was still around. I can't imagine how they stood there in silence. It's as if she stayed close.
Let me tell you guys a story time of this friend of mine who gave me a clay doll and told me that because I can't get into any relationship, this will be my boyfriend. And I took it lightly and I took the thing. So, how I met this girl, I met her at a McDonald's. And she was like, hey, you're so pretty. I was like, thank you, you're pretty too. And she's like, really? Thank you so much. Like, can we be friends? I like you, you're so nice. And I was like, sure, why not? So one thing you should know about this girl is that she comes from a very wealthy family. So I like that about her as well, because every single time we'd go visit her, her mom would give us money to go shopping, or she'd take us out to like restaurants, like nice restaurants. Sometimes she'd take us to McDonald's, things that I used to see on a sometimes basis during the month. Does that make sense? So one day we're sitting watching TV or whatever, and I noticed a clay doll next to the TV, right? And I'm like, Eva, now that clay doll is actually really nice. That's a nice decoration, right? She tells me that they went to Nigeria to get this particular doll, and they went into the indigenous like villages or whatever, because it was a really nice clay doll. It had necklaces or whatever. Little did I know that was a voodoo doll. She gives me the doll. She's like, it's okay, you can have it, you can go decorate. And I was like, yeah, no, this is nice. I lie to people and say that my dad went to Nigeria to go buy this. And she laughs. She's like, also, this is apparently supposed to give you luck. Maybe it'll give you luck in your relationships, because your relationship status is stressing me out. And she's like, even your talking stages and stuff. I'm like, really? Thanks, girl. I take the thing, Even her mom, she told her mom, like, hey, mama, I gave my friend the doll. The mom is like, oh, okay, no problem. Chilled. I put it in my bag. I take it home with me. So I take the doll when I get home, right? And I put it on my table as a decoration. But like, I put it next to my bed. There's a table next to my bed, ne? So I put this next to my table. My table is obviously next to my bed, like I explained. But I put the thing at the edge of the table, and my bed is like right here. I sleep, guys. I go to bed and I start having dreams where somebody is trying to sleep with me. This time, this person so basically in that dream I wake up, right, and I want to go to the bathroom, and then this person, I switch on the lights, and then this person comes in my room, switches off the lights, and pushes me back. Before I could even see the person, this person pushes me back and puts me on the bed and starts caressing me. I don't know how I allowed this in the dream, but I'm allowing this person to caress me. As soon as they tried to take off my clothes is when I pushed them, and when I pushed them away, I opened my eyes, and never did I think it could be this thing. I let it go. The following day, same thing happens, and I'm thinking, mind you, I'm not praying about this. I'm just thinking, I don't know, I'm not praying about this. I think after about a week of me having the same dream over and over, and I keep pushing this man that I don't know off me, my friend texts me, right? All of a sudden, she doesn't initiate for us to come see each other. I didn't notice that in the beginning, but I do now. She's like, hey, Chomi, how are you? I'm like, I'm good. How are you? She's like, I'm good. I'm thinking she's going to want us to hang out. I ask her, can we hang out this weekend? She's like, no, she's not going to be available or whatever. And she's like, how's the doll treating you? I'm like, I don't know. It's cute. It's a nice artifact. She's like, where did you put it? I tell her I put it on my table, for decoration. She's like, oh, okay, cool. And I'm like, yeah. I'm thinking she's going to speak about something else. She's like, have you been having any weird dreams or whatever? Maybe you seeing money? Because apparently the clay doll was supposed to be bring me luck. I was like, oh no, nothing. So after she asked me about the clay doll, she ended the conversation right there. I was like, I chilled. Nighttime comes, I sleep. This time, guys, in the dream, I started fighting this particular person. And as I'm fighting this person, remember, I wake up. Unfortunately for me, it was 1 a.m. I was scared as hell. And I just remember praying and being like, Lord, whatever this thing is, please give me the strength and courage to fight it. Why did I say that? Because I knew that I was going to go back to sleep and this thing is going to come back. When I tell you, after I prayed, 5 minutes later, I passed out. As I'm passing out, guys, this time we are in the light. I don't see this person's face. I start fighting this person. So as I start fighting this person, eventually I'm down. My back is on the bed or whatever. And as I push this person away, I look up and guess who it is? It's my friend's dad. I said, what? Mind you, all along, this person had been coming in my dreams wearing the same outfit. So I see this person is wearing a white cloth or whatever. But this time, I seen this person. It was my friend's dad, the rich friend. The rich friend. The dad was wearing this purple. The dad was wearing this other purple shirt and this other black pants. And I was like, man, it really is him because I know that outfit. I I start beating this man. And as soon as I realize, oh, this man, like I start beating this man, I start trying to fight him, and obviously he's overpowering. And as soon as I realize that, no man, that clay doll, its eyes were red and they were like flashing, whatever, my back is on the bed, I roll over in the dream, remember. I take that thing and I throw it on the floor. I smash it on the floor. And next thing, this person suddenly becomes weak. And he's like, no, why would you do that? Why would you do that? When I tell you, the house, my room started shaking. The walls started falling and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, hey, well, what's going on? You know? And he's like, why would you do that? Now all of a sudden he's scraping and I'm just looking at him quiet, scared. I woke up that morning with a very bad headache. And I was like, dang, like that was crazy. When I tell you, I woke up in the morning and I held my phone. Obviously, I prayed a little bit in my heart and I was like, thank you, God, for protecting me, whatever. Mind you, when I wake up, I touched my phone. As I'm looking on my phone, I look at my friend's status, my alleged friend's status, and she's posting of how she's sad or whatever. And next thing, her status, she shows her house. It got demolished. How? I don't know. From top to bottom, it fell. And then as soon as I put my phone down, I realized that clay doll has disappeared. And I'm just like, dang, that is kind of weird. So I text my friend. Obviously, I comment on her status like, damn, what happened? She's like, she doesn't know. There was a minor earthquake and their house fell. Other houses didn't fall, so she doesn't understand what's going on. And I'm like, okay, babe. I'm sorry about that. Like, do you need me to come? She's like, no, it's okay. Same day, baby girl was on a flight with her family members to Nigeria again. She's like, catching flights, not feelings. People are gonna fix the house. You know how people that are rich, obviously she's fixing that. Yeah, you guys may have done little 1-2-1-2, but they're fixing their house. This is not a permanent thing. It's temporary. They're going back to Nigeria for vacation. I post this girl on my story or whatever with her heart on Instagram. This other person sends me a message request on some, hey, get away from that girl, right? And I respond like, why? She's like, this girl, like her and her family practice witchcraft. Her dad is a ritualist and she's helping her dad because obviously when the dad dies, she's going to take over. I was like, how do you know all of this? She's like, I used to be this girl's friend. We met at the mall. The very same way that she approached me, she approached that girl. And she was like, my dear, this girl gave me a necklace. And when I tell you that necklace, I started sleeping with a thing only to find out that it was her dad. And she says that this thing actually slept with her. And she says when this person was sleeping with her, she was losing her virtues. And then one day, obviously, her mom took her somewhere and they told her to stay away from that girl because that girl is evil as her parents. So you should stay away from her and take that necklace that she gave you and throw it away. And I'm like, girl, she was telling me things that happened to me. And I told her, I was like, I had this clay doll, but it disappeared, blah, blah, blah. She's like, pray and stay away from that girl. I'm telling you, now that you know what she does, she'll never speak to you again. And for sure, guys, she never spoke to me ever again. But after a week, I blocked her because I believed the girl on Instagram. And I stopped talking to her, sissy. And she had another friend. Next week, she had a new friend. And I was like, hey, God protects these souls, Shane, because baby girl is recruiting girls for her dad.
I'm staring at that clay doll's bright eye in my head, and I'm just done. She actually thought it was just a nice gift from a rich friend. Then she sees the dad's face in her sleep. That's wrong on every level. The whole idea of him showing up like that is enough to keep anyone from sleeping. When the house just falls down right after she breaks the doll, I mean, there's no way this is a coincidence. I feel like the whole family was tied to that one object. I'd be checking behind me for a long time after that message from the girl about her own lost virtues. And this is it for today. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and maybe comment down below which story was your favorite. I hope you enjoyed this video, but if you enjoyed it, maybe click on this next one. That's it. Have a nice day. Goodbye.